Hey guys, what's going on? Jebb here, and in today's video, we are going to be talking a little bit more about Cardano because actually some news has come out recently having to do with Coinbase that shows us a little bit of why Cardano might be rallying so much. In case you didn't know, Cardano has rallied all the way up to $1.15. It's up 16.5% over just the last 24 hours and up 33% in just the last 3 days. We've got a major rally going on right now, and we need to talk about it. But we're also going to be talking about a couple of other news stories having to do with the CEO of a tungsten mining company called Almonty coming out and saying that if the Federal Reserve does not drastically increase interest rates, then we are going to see 10 years of battling the US dollar's inflation. We've seen the highest change in inflation to the upside in the history of the United States dollar as of this year. We're going to be looking at that rate of change as well. And Nayib Bukele came out and said, and I quote on Twitter, "The U.S. government does not stand for freedom, and this is a proven fact because of a bill that was put forth for the United States to keep an eye on El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin." Some pretty big stories, quite a bit of drama going on right now. We have sovereign nations going at it in more ways than one right now on the geopolitical stage, and we're going to be talking about all of that and more as I look like alfalfa here with my hair. Yes, I see it, Smay. I see you looking over at me like, Jebb, fix your hair. I know, it's all right. We're also joined, as always, by TA Tim. How are you doing, Tim?
What's up, everybody? Had a good morning this morning. Smay and I, we went to the gym. We were going to do leg day. And then we said, you know what? Let's go play some basketball. Smay, do you want to tell them how basketball went, or do you want me to tell them?
It was fun.
What happened during basketball?
Tim, I'd like you to know that pride does come before the fall. So if you wanted to,
what happened in basketball?
That he injured me in my back, and
I don't think I injured you. Ran into,
You know, he's trying to get me to admit defeat, and I will say this humbly: I lost. He's better at basketball than me, but he also injured my back. And
is that why you're wearing the basketball jersey to like compensate the?
Oof.
No, it's because I need to do laundry. I'm gonna be really cheap. I need to do some laundry. But anyways.
Oh gosh.
Now, comment what you guys think the score was. We played to 11. What do you guys think the score was? I probably will neither confirm nor deny the score, but I just want to hear you guys' thoughts.
Why you literally are continuing to? I didn't even score a point, guys.
Well, now you just told him the score.
Aww.
All right.
I wasn't gonna confirm or deny.
Well, we're also joined as always by Smay. How you doing, Smay?
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the stream.
I'd like to say I'm not proud of the fact that I'm wearing a Lakers jersey. I think it's gross. But I will say the fact is I'm only wearing it because it's a Lonzo Ball jersey. He doesn't play there anymore, and I actually really like him as a player. This is more so to support him, not the team. I hate the organization. But I will say this.
Woo, sports ball.
Guys, my back hurts because of Tim. All right, I just want to put that out there.
That's abuse.
But also, I would like to say that also my side hurts because of Universal. I must have like pulled something. So now I'm like in all kinds of pain. But you know what I like to do in my pain? I like to say green names. It makes me feel better. So some of these green names that I have here, we got Mike Markle, Elliot Locke, Crypto Al, we got Adam Rourke, we got Siobhan Golay, we got Matt C, we got Eye of the Beholder, we got who else we got? We got Cryptoffer, we've got who else we got here? Let's see, Silva Dollar. Who else we got here? Oh, Crypto Alchemist. I love all you guys. You guys are the best. Thank you.
And there you go. Well, guys, thank you so very much for all of our members who have joined the membership program. If you would like to join the membership program and continue to support the channel and have one of those green names, make sure to check that join button down below. And by the way, another button you ought to click is the like button because we got a lot of content coming up and we are very much looking forward to sharing all of it with you. Today's episode is brought to you by Lux Algo. So if you want to get access to one of the most powerful technical indicators to help you ascertain what trend a market is in, then you definitely should check out Lux Algo. Use coupon code Jebb, Jebb, for 20% off at checkout. The link's in the description. We're going to be using it in our analysis on Bitcoin and Cardano today, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to start over here on CoinMarketCap. Take a look at what's going on in the Bitcoin and the altcoin space. As you can see, Bitcoin is up 2% right now, 4.7% over the last week. And the interesting thing here that I've been pointing out all week is that many of the altcoins are actually outperforming Bitcoin. This is a very good sign because, as I've said over the course of many different pieces of content, it goes to show you that people are becoming more and more confident in the altcoins, which means that they are not being so fearful as to hold on to only their Bitcoin. What this tells us is that Bitcoin is seemingly, according to the market sentiment, strong enough that people are willing to go and invest in the altcoins. People are starting to take a more risk-on mindset, and that's a very good sign because that speaks to investor confidence. What do we need to get the market rallying again? We need investor confidence in the fact that Bitcoin is going to be okay, that these are great buying opportunities, and yes, if the market goes down a little bit more, awesome. We just get to buy in lower. We really need to see the mass psychology and the market sentiment move in a direction of bullishness and hope, and we are seeing glimmers of that with people investing in the altcoins more so than they are in Bitcoin. How do we know that? Well, the altcoins are rallying faster than Bitcoin for the most part. Ethereum up 7% over the last 7 days. Binance Coin pretty much treading water with Bitcoin up 4.5%. XRP doing the same. But then we have the outlier that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. That being Cardano. It is up 35% in the last 7 days. The vast majority of that rally having happened in the last 3 days. Luna up 3%. Luna came out and talked about how they are going to be buying $3 billion worth of Bitcoin. That was the big story there for a while, but that's kind of died off just a little bit. Luna had a pretty decently sized rally not too long ago, but now it's kind of dipping by quite a bit. If you look on the monthly chart, we rallied a little bit, moving back here about a week ago, down from lows around 80 all the way up to highs of 95, but now it's calmed down a little bit. And then there's a couple of other projects I'll show you. Dogecoin up 10%, Avalanche up a little bit, Solana up 7%. Dogecoin being up 9% is actually very interesting. And the reason is, and don't take this the wrong way, the vast majority of people that invest in Dogecoin are investors that are a little bit newer to the space. And what it tells me when Dogecoin is rallying that much, it tells me that there's new money coming into the space, because I'm not saying that experienced money doesn't invest in Dogecoin, but I'm saying that experienced money doesn't often invest in Dogecoin. It's not a great project for the long run, other than the fact that it is the #1 meme coin, and there is some value in that. But whenever the meme cryptocurrencies are starting to see gains and growth, oftentimes that means that we are in a risk-on mindset market, which is what I was talking about with these different altcoins running quite a bit. If we see people investing in highly speculative and unstable assets such as Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, and by the way, if you don't agree with that statement, go look at the chart and tell me otherwise, that goes to show you that people are in a more risk-on mindset. Tim, before we even jump into our technical analysis, what is your thoughts of that concept of people are investing more in the altcoins and even in highly speculative assets such as Dogecoin? Does that tell you that we're seeing some new money flow into the space and that people are looking for opportunities around every corner, or am I reading into that too much?
I don't know if there's enough to say a whole heck of a lot of new money flowing into space. Even some on-chain stuff that we've covered earlier this week has shown a lot of whales and a lot of existing wallets are starting to bring new money in, but there's not necessarily a whole heck of a lot of new wallets and new money coming in. I think it's more existing and experienced investors in the space are moving their money over. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, because as we said in the title, there was an opinion that inflation could go for another 10 years unless something serious happens. Are people starting to see the writing on the wall and saying, I'm going to do this wisely and smartly, but the US dollar is just dying, so I'm going to go ahead and start preparing for the future and slowly start investing in these good altcoins and cryptos that are going to be here for a long haul and beat out the dollar.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I think we're going to see the trend be for those next 10 years that the CEO of Almonty was saying. We're going to see a lot of people moving into the cryptocurrency space because they have nowhere else to go to store their wealth into the long-term distant future. By the way, going to remind you, we have an interview with Michael Saylor coming out on Saturday. We discussed in that interview how Bitcoin is quite literally the only proven investment vehicle to maintain value into the distant future. Talking about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, there is nowhere else that you can store money to inflation hedge and do it responsibly. You have 2% inflation on gold. That means you will lose half of your money in 35 to 50 years. Depending on the exact inflation rate. You just can't maintain your value in a market like that. Bitcoin is the only place you can do that, and as people start to wake up to the fact that the US dollar is losing a massive amount of its traction and it is starting to inflate at insane rates, then people are going to start looking for a solution. What's the solution? It's the only one there ever has been, truly, and it is Bitcoin. If you're enjoying today's show, make sure to hit that like button. Share the stream with a friend who you think might find some value out of this content. We're going to go ahead and move on here into Cardano. So ADA, as you know, has been on a tear over the last week and a half or so. Going back to about March 15th, about 9 days ago, we were sitting down here at 78 cents. Ever since then, we've rallied 48% in 9 days. And in fact, in just the last 3 days, we've rallied 33%. That is pretty huge because we're not seeing that happen hardly anywhere else in the cryptocurrency space. And it's really funny because whenever Cardano rallies, it normally rallies at the least expected time. Normally when Cardano goes into a big uptrend, it's right when you didn't expect it. And this is kind of a good example of that. What we're seeing right now is Cardano is going through a large rally while the rest of the cryptocurrency market is just kind of sitting still. Now, Bitcoin's in an interesting setup. We're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but for the most part, the market's just moving a little bit, but not that much. So that means that Cardano's moving on its own right. If you guys haven't already looked at some of our other content where we've talked about the staking, the total value locked over on Cardano, you can see that it has increased, as we've talked about, from $120 million to $316 million. What does that mean? That means the layer 2 network is 3 times more valuable today than it was 5 weeks ago on Cardano. That's a big deal because Cardano is infrastructure, and infrastructure, its value comes from the things that are riding on the rails that it provides. The interstate highway system, for example, is only so valuable to the U.S. economy because it is used. Cardano is only so valuable because it is actually being used for what it was designed to do. And there's been a valid argument for a long time that, hey, Cardano has a lot of great technology, has a really great why, but it's still riding on a promise. It's a $38 billion promise. Well, now that promise is coming to fruition. If it was able to get to 40, 50, 60, $100 billion nearly on a promise, what do you think it could do on a product being delivered to people? A lot. That's what my analysis would lead me to believe. So here's what I'm seeing on ADA. As you know, we broke bullish out of a downtrending, descending wedge right here over the last couple of days. That has led to a large rally. We also talked about yesterday how Cardano needed to break and stay above $1. Well, it has so far done that, and it's gotten so far above $1 that if it did need to go down to a correction, it would probably pull back down to about $1 and hold there. It could go through a healthy 15% correction and consolidation and still maintain $1's valuation. That is a great sign because it just goes to show you on the long term, when we breached $1 and fell below it as support, we very quickly rallied back up above it. This actually gives me a whole lot of confidence in the Cardano market. Let me show you why. If we go back to Bitcoin and we look at 2018, I love using this market as an analogy. If we go back to 2018, what happened when Bitcoin was sitting above $6,000, as we can see right here, and we dropped below $6,000 for the first time? We fell down below $6,000 briefly, as we did falling below $1 on Cardano, and then instead of Bitcoin bouncing and rallying and going into a big parabolic run up to new local highs, Bitcoin collapsed because $6,000 was just too high of a floor for it. It needed to go lower because its sentiment was just not there. Instead of that happening on Cardano just now, what Cardano did is it fell briefly below $1, gave ample opportunity for the bears to smash the price down to very low lows, like 50 cents. But instead of doing that, the sentiment and the community came in and moonshot the price. And I think at this point, we're kind of getting to the point where we can say the word moonshot. It's up 50% in 10 days, while the rest of the market's up maybe 5 in the same time. So what that tells me is that even though we breached $1 is actually extremely strong support for Cardano, because when we broke below it and gave the bears an opportunity to just completely collapse the price, it didn't happen. This rally, so long as it maintains itself and we don't, drop down to a lower low, is giving me quite a bit of confidence in Cardano. Now, we do need to be careful because we want to make sure that we're not in a fake out rally like a bull trap like we saw back over here. That's why I would be totally fine with seeing a correction and consolidation. But at the same time, instead of a bull trap, we could just be seeing what started back over here in July, moving on into August, where Cardano just undergoes a massive rally and nothing can stop it, including being overextended on the TD sequential. So I've already shown you quite a bit of the technical analysis on this in yesterday's video. I will show you some. But for the most part, guys, the thing I want to show you right now is that Cardano is doing extremely well, and part of that has to do with news. So just a quick rundown of the TA. Right now on the daily chart, this is actually an update from yesterday. RSI is sitting at 74. That is the highest RSI level that we have seen on Cardano ever since August of 2021. That was nearly 7 months ago. And in that same time, if we just draw a vertical line, we can see that Cardano was in the absolute most explosive part of its rally. So the fact that we've gotten above 77 indicates that this is not the same thing as was happening in these two cases, where we did not even get to 70. In this case, we barely even got to 55. Right now, we're sitting at 77. Remember, the RSI is not primarily an overbought, oversold indicator. That's just one of the things you can use it for. RSI is to show you the relative strength. That's why it's called the relative strength index of the bulls and the bears. When you're sitting at 74, 77 on RSI, that tells you that the bulls are very much in charge right now. That's why we read it primarily, is to get a feel for which faction is in dominance. Right now, the bulls are absolutely dominating the bears, and we see that showing up in the price. We even see this showing up on the weekly chart with these candlesticks. If we close the candlestick, this weekly candlestick, and it looks like this, that is going to be remarkably bullish. Just look at this downtrend, and then we see two massive bullish candlesticks. This is something that we cannot ignore. And by the way, we've just gotten started, because we could be about to see a bullish MACD cross on a weekly chart. We could be about to see a 50, the RSI crossing above 50, which would indicate that the bulls are in charge again out on the weekly chart, which would give us a lot more confidence. And if we come up here to $1.25, break recent highs, get up above $1.30, we could very easily see a bullish Lux Algo buy signal, which we've only seen two of in the last 2 years, and both of them led to absolutely huge rallies on this market. So pay close attention to Cardano, because it is in the best setup that it has been in over 6 months. Now, Tim, can you tell us a little bit about what happened on Coinbase yesterday? Because there was an update on Coinbase that I think has something to do with this price.
Well, I mean, the first thing, what we noticed as a company, we got a text from one of the guys that works for us saying, hey, man, I'm getting APY on my Cardano over on Coinbase. What's going on here? So we started looking into it, and then they came out and announced that they're actually going to allow staking to happen on Coinbase as a whole. So I've seen a couple different numbers thrown out there. I'm not 100% certain. One was in like the 4.75. I saw another one was like 3.75. I need to do more digging specifically on what that is, but as a whole, Coinbase is allowing you now to stake your Cardano there. So another incentive for people. You know, we're kind of sitting here with Coinbase saying, is this a good project? Is this bad? We obviously had the FUD come out where they agreed to help sanction Russia by blocking Russian accounts. Kind of had a flow away from Coinbase. We had a lot of people withdrawing, probably for that, a combination of that and just wanting to go ahead and get their money onto cold wallets. But now we're going to see potentially some money move back on exchange with Coinbase due to the fact that you can now stake on Coinbase almost effortlessly. I know there's lots of other projects and exchanges out there that you can do it as well, but Coinbase being one of the big dogs, it's going to be very attractive to some people who don't have the time to do the deep research on all it takes to stake on other platforms.
Absolutely. So that's what we got for you on Cardano here. We don't want to beat a dead horse, so we're going to go ahead and move on here to Bitcoin, because there's actually quite a lot of news over on Bitcoin as well. The markets are starting to heat up, guys. That's kind of the theme right now. The markets are starting to get more interesting, so make sure you're staying tuned, because one of the things we keep talking about and keep harping on as Bitcoin and crypto has been trading sideways here for 2.5 months is that there is opportunity around every single corner. Just because the market is not moving 10, 15% every single day, just because we're not at fresh all-time highs every single day, does not mean that there are not opportunities. There's so many opportunities, not only to make money, but also, more importantly, to learn and grow as a trader and an investor. Because if you don't focus on growing as a trader and an investor, you are never going to be able to make the kind of gains that you want to be able to make, because the point is you are making those gains. It is your decisions that are bringing you those gains. So the best investment you will ever make is in that you person who is going out and making the trades and the investment. So make sure you're investing in yourself through consistent and constant education and growth and wisdom and experience in the space. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin, because other than learning opportunities, there are also potentially trade opportunities. On the daily chart for Bitcoin, remember that we are in a symmetrical triangle pattern and have been for 3 months. This symmetrical triangle pattern, bearishly, has a price target, depending on how bearish and how much you want to draw it, down at $20,000. I'm not saying we're going there, but I am saying that the prevailing technical chart formation right now is a bearish one. However, if we look at the 4-hourly chart, we can see that Bitcoin has actually just broken above a pretty critical level of resistance. This resistance level, as set by these two highs back over here, it intersected this one, was set here and here. We broke that. And then we came down and tested as support. Now we've rallied all the way up to the downtrending level of resistance on the symmetrical triangle pattern that Bitcoin is currently in. And we're also looking like we're just below about $43,316, which is a very important level for me, because if Bitcoin closes the week out below that, then I will win the HODL trophy, but we shall see what happens there. But the thing is, Bitcoin right now is testing the resistance. And that's a good sign, because whenever you're testing support or resistance, well, then you have an opportunity to break the support or resistance. I think that is kind of self-explanatory. And Bitcoin has spent quite a bit of time down here around the support, but we managed to confidently hold it and move into a rally. Bitcoin might seem boring right now, but it's actually up 13.5% in the last 10 days. That's not bad, and there's a lot of trading opportunities and volatility in that. So the question now becomes, are we going to break this all-important downtrending level of resistance and start moving back up towards the critical level of 46K, or are we going to break to the downside? Because if you look at the 4-hourly, there is also an ascending wedge right here. This ascending wedge, historically speaking, would break to the downside in the same way Cardano's descending wedge historically would break to the upside. If you've been through the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, then you will know that descending wedges have a 70% chance of breaking up, ascending wedges have a 70% chance of breaking down. So there is a bearish argument on the long-term time frames, and on the short-term time frames, it's really the medium-term time frame. I'm talking about the next 7 days to month that we start to see some bullish factors coming into play. Going back out to the daily chart, we can see that we are currently under a Lux Algo buy signal, as you already know. And out here on the weekly chart, you can see that we're about to have, hopefully and prayerfully, a bullish MACD cross. That would help give some exuberance and enthusiasm to the bulls. And if we're able to get above $50,000 and stay up there for a couple of weeks, we could very well see a strong buy signal coming in on the weekly chart. But then looking down the 3-daily chart, we can also see that we are primed for a buy signal on the 3-daily chart that we have not seen yet. We have green trend catcher, Lux Oscillator is green, and if we continue to move to the upside, maybe up to about $46,000, then we will likely see a buy signal. And if you just look at the history of buy signals out here on the 3-daily chart, which is one of my favorite charts to look at Bitcoin on, you will see that the last 3 confirmed buy signals, which I have circled right here, all of them led to major uptrends. If we look at this buy signal right here, going to the next sell signal, which was right here, that was a 400% gain. Right here, it was a 62% gain. Right here, it was a 71% gain. You might be wondering, why is this strong buy signal and this strong buy signal not a part of that? Well, they're both invalid because the sell signal that preceded them was invalid because it was never confirmed by a red trend catcher. You see how the trend catcher never turned red here, but it did in these cases, as you can see right there and right there and right there. That means that these pairings of buy and sell signals, these right here, are invalid, so ignore them. These last 4 pairings of buy and sell signals are the ones that you really want to pay attention to. Bitcoin has, Lux Algo has a perfect track record of calling rallies over the last 2 years on the 3-daily chart if you use the strategy that I've outlined for you, that I consistently use on every single time frame. I don't go around changing the strategy to fit the chart. I use the same strategy and it works consistently. So if we do manage to see a buy signal out here on the 3-daily chart, that is going to be a huge vote of confidence for Bitcoin. By the way, if you guys haven't gotten Lux Algo, today's show is brought to you by Lux Algo. Make sure that you check the link in the description box down below. Sign up with coupon code Jebb, J-E-B-B, for 20% off at checkout if you want this indicator, because it's really going to help you figure out what trend Bitcoin is in, and you will make your money back on it very quickly if you are a trader. Anyway, a couple of other things I want to talk about down on the daily chart. I just want to remind you guys very briefly that what we are doing right now is we are building a strong foundational level of support. Look at this VPVR, guys. The VPVR right here in between $30,000 and $45,000 is now massive, because as we traded sideways back over here in May, June, and July of 2021 between $30,000 and $40,000, and as we've traded sideways over here between $35,000 and $43,000 over here for the last 3 months during 2022, we have seen major gains on the VPVR that we will now use in future as support. We have so much support here that what we've done is we've built this strong zone floor of support that Bitcoin will always have to support itself in the future if it ever needs it. That is amazing, and that's what we want to see happen as we trade sideways here. So Tim, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? Do you see opportunity? Do you think we're going to break bullish out of that symmetrical triangle pattern, or are we going to continue trading sideways?
Okay, so I think, complicated question. Let me answer it the best way I can. No to symmetrical triangle pattern. I think we're going to continue that ascending triangle pattern. Now, and you guys are looking at my screen. Man, I don't know if you've uploaded already. There's a lot of lines on here, a lot of zones. I'll tell you what, right? Look at this red zone right here, this flat zone. There's a little box, and then uptrending blue zone. I think we're still playing that. That's why I made the prediction that I thought Friday we'd get over closer to 44,300, which is right here at the top side of this zone. I do have a concern. I'll talk about it in a second why I think we might not get it by Friday, so I might not win the HODL trophy, but I do think we're going to get there. I just might have been a little bit too late. However, I understand why Jebb's talking about symmetrical triangle patterns. We were in one. You guys see this red line right here, this yellow line I have drawn. We talked about those in previous shows, but we have broken the resistance on those. The last one that I think Jebb has drawn would be, I guess, connecting some of these, instead of connecting to this little close right here, he connected to this top one right there. However, that's not how I have that drawn, so I still believe we're going to be moving actually to the upside and continuing this flat zone of resistance and then coming back down probably within the next couple of weeks, touching this blue line again and moving up. And then the question becomes, do we actually get enough momentum to break 46 and go up, or will we end up coming down in this? We've been talking about this for weeks now. Are we building up hope? Are we giving people a shrivel of hope before the price breaks back down below 35,000? And at that point, people, I think, would just about there'd be some people very tempted to just give up, and that's when the whales and institutions swoop in and buy all the supply, and then the price ends up going up, and then people want to come back in, but now instead of buying in the 30s, they actually end up buying in the 50s, 60s, 70s as we're heading up. So what I said, though, I think long-term, that's what we're doing. Just so you guys know that I have concerns 4 hourly about my price prediction. The reason why yesterday, if you guys were watching the show, I talked about how there was almost no bearish or bullish RSI divergence forming new. We do have some now on the 4 hourly chart. I had that little close right there right at midnight here Eastern Standard Time. It formed for its bearish divergence. You guys see this blue line I have drawn? Could we potentially see the price drop back down, touch the support line somewhere within the next couple of hours, the rest of the day, and then rally? The problem is it just might be a little too late to get above 43,300, which is what I need it to be tomorrow at 10:20 to beat Jebb.
Yeah.
So bullish though. It's going up. It's just I might not win the HODL trophy again.
Well, that's okay. I would love to hold the HODL trophy. Guys, if you're enjoying today's stream, hit that like button. Let's get to 500 likes in the next couple of minutes. We got 1,600 people watching, 415 likes. I know we can get there. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and read some super chats. We've actually got a bunch of them.
We do.
Right now.
We have a good amount today. This is sometimes this thing is stupid. I have this chart, and it always gives me these weird signals. I'm using Brave browser. Anyone using Brave browser out there, let me know how you like it. I love the no ads thing, but I'm telling you, there's some glitches that happen every now and then that make me say,
knock on wood.
Chrome sometimes does well. All right, Eric Liddell said, if you face sanctions, which privacy coin or other crypto would you use and why? Joking aside, are privacy coins underrated?
Privacy coins are not underrated. In fact, I think privacy coins are... Okay, so privacy coins are a great idea. The problem is when regulators say you can launder money through them, they're actually kind of right. And I've never been a big investor in privacy coins because I know that at some point in the future, regulation is going to come down hard on them, because when you're able to mask transactions and have no idea where they're going, that's really scary for world governments. Now, I'm not even really going to comment on whether or not I agree with governments. I'm a small government kind of guy, so you might be able to guess my take on that. However, the reality is we live in a society that has a lot of very big governments in them that really like to crack down on anything that they cannot track. I don't personally think it's very wise to invest heavily in privacy coins for that reason, because they're going to get cracked down on hard, and it's not going to be the same deal with if you crack down on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an unstoppable force that's worth $1 trillion. It's a proven market. We have never seen a privacy coin do that. We've never seen anywhere near the adoption of a privacy coin, and frankly, the only benefit of a privacy coin over Bitcoin is that it masks the transactions. Bitcoin, we found this out on the internet with people, being totally fine with cookies and tracking and all this stuff. 95% of people do not care in the slightest that they can be tracked, especially if they're not actually being tracked. It's difficult to track people on Bitcoin. It's just not impossible. And two, the vast majority of people don't care. So I have not personally invested ever in privacy coins for that reason. So that's what I would say to that.
Yes, Connor Brown. So I don't know if he asked this yesterday or somebody else asked it, but he said, hey, Jebb and gang, have you guys heard of Secret Bull Society NFT project on Cardano? It will knock your socks off. The answer is yes, we've heard of it, but recently. And
I haven't heard of it. It's a secret.
No, I'm in. You're not in?
They're not supposed to know that, Tim. It's a secret.
I ruined it.
You did.
Sorry.
What the heck?
No, Connor, we have no idea what you're talking about.
No, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Boo.
Yes,
All right.
exactly.
Terran crypto. Stablecoins are seen as a safe place for crypto gains and dry powder. How will inflation affect the demand of them and the U.S. dollar falls in value? And then he said LLAP. That's probably an acronym.
Live long and prosper.
There we
Thank
go.
you, Spock.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper. I am actually a Star Wars fan, not a Trekkie, but I know what that one means. Here's the deal with stablecoins. A lot of people are going to use stablecoins in the same way that they use the US dollar, which is to hold value for less than 6 months. As we move into this new climate of hyperinflation, and yes, I will call it that, because every single currency in the world is undergoing insane inflation. Now, maybe I shouldn't say the US dollar is hyperinflating, because oftentimes when people say hyperinflation, they're talking about 100% or more a year. The US dollar is inflating, in my opinion, more like 20 or 30% a year. 8% a year is a complete and total joke. CPI data has been skewed for a very long time. How are you going to trust a government entity to report on itself when governments love covering up what's really going on because they don't want to get egg on their face because the politicians in charge want to get reelected? I could go on all day about how stupid the CPI is, how it doesn't include housing in a cost of living basket of goods. Long story short, I don't trust inflation data. It's a lot worse than you think. And the reason that's important for stablecoins is because if you peg a stablecoin to the US dollar, which most of them are, then when the US dollar inflates, so do the stablecoins. So people are likely going to be using stablecoins in the same way they use currency in this new environment, this new climate. They're going to hold value in the stablecoin for the short term, but then they're going to hold their value for the long term in Bitcoin. If they're holding it in stablecoins, it's probably, like you said, taking profits, or it could be that they're using the money in stablecoins to do transactions in a simpler and more cross-border remittance, more free way than if you were to use actual currencies in the traditional banking system. So that actually leads us very well into our next topic, which has to do with inflation. We're going to get to the rest of these super chats, guys. I promise we're going to get to read all of them before the show is over. Make sure you smash that like button. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I think we're providing great content here at the channel. I'd like to think that anyway. Tell us if you agree. If you want to get more of the content that we are providing, we look at technicals, on-chain, and fundamental metrics every single day of every single week. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that post notification bell. Like I said, that leads us pretty beautifully into our next topic here, which is the Fed could take 10 years to get inflation under control, says Almonty Industries CEO. Now, I'm going to go into this briefly. Almonty is a tungsten mining company, and the CEO has been the CEO for 15 years. He's got some things to say, but before we do that, I actually want to go over here to a chart on macrotrends.net. This shows the inflation rate of the US dollar from 1960 to 2022. You can see the annualized inflation rate of the US dollar jumped significantly following 1971 with the breakup of the Bretton Woods Agreement. That is when we officially went off the gold standard on the US dollar. Now, we had been moving away from the gold standard for quite some time, but it was around that time that we actually officially broke off the agreement and we went away from the gold standard. Formally. So there's a couple of things I want you to notice here. We had 6% inflation in 1970 before we went off the gold standard. So that goes to show you that going off the gold standard is not where inflation came from. We were seeing inflation before we ever went off the gold standard for a variety of reasons. Being on a gold standard is not the only thing that is going to help with inflation. It does help with money printing, but there are many other ways that governments can inflate the currency without printing money, such as screwing up supply chains and making it much harder to deliver goods and services to the populace, which causes costs of goods to go up, which impacts things like CPI data, because it's not just about the supply of the currency that impacts inflation. That's a very narrow view of what inflation is. It's actually much more than that. When we went off the gold standard, we saw 11% CPI inflation in 1974, and we saw 13.5% inflation in 1980. This was back during the era of 20% returns on bond yields, because we saw that the federal funds rate was sitting at 18, 19, 20%. The interest rates were ridiculous. I had a great uncle named Johnny who made hundreds of thousands of dollars because he had a farm, sold the farm, put a couple $1 million in bonds, and retired because they were providing 20% a year. He rode that for a while, made a ton of money. But the point I want to show you on this chart is that it looks like inflation started to go down in the 80s. That's not exactly true. What we saw happen in the 80s is CPI was redefined, and we saw that CPI started to move in a different direction. They changed the way the basket of goods was defined. I'm not going to get into all of that today, but we might make a video on CPI in the future and the corrupt history of it. The point is, inflation looked like it was sitting at 2% nominally for the last 20, 30 years. That is just ridiculous in my opinion. But the point is, in this chart, in the official history of the US dollar's inflation, the most annual change that we had ever seen in inflation was 4.88%. Well, as reported here, you can see that we were claiming inflation was 1.23% in 2020. That is absurd because we almost doubled the supply of the US dollars during that time, increased it by 40%. We also saw the entire global economy shut down, which in and of itself is going to lead to inflation. So that number is just wrong. But the point is, we are now sitting at, as is reported by the Federal Reserve, 7.5% inflation. Excuse me, I'm sorry, 7.8 to 7.9% inflation. The reason being, the three people that vote on inflation, two of them said 12%, one of them said 4%. So they averaged it out and came to 8%. Inflation is really being reported by some government entities at 12% who underreport inflation. Inflation, in my opinion, is over 20% right now. So the point I'm making here is that this is the highest jump that we've ever seen in annualized inflation. We have never seen inflation increase more in 1 year than we have this year, last year of 2021. Moving on into this year, it's only going to get worse. So when this CEO comes out and says it may take 10 years to get inflation under control, in my opinion, that's a conservative estimate. I think we are never going to get inflation under control in the way that we claim to have done in the 80s. I don't believe that we ever got inflation under control. I believe that we may have lowered it a little bit more, but we readjusted our numbers and just got used to the dollar losing as much of its value because we think that when the entire economy grows or when the entire economy sinks relative to itself, everything's fine. That's just not true. If you try to store your value in the US dollar over a course of more than 10 years, over the course of more than 2 years nowadays, you are going to get burned. That's why Bitcoin is important. So I want to read what he actually said here. Almonty is a global mining company focused on tungsten mining and exploration. Black has over 15 years of experience in the tungsten mining industry. And here are a couple of things that he said. The fashion right now is to blame Putin, and some commodities have rallied on the back of the invasion, but some were already at all-time high or near that, or near those highs before that. He also said they have to get inflation under control. If it gets out of control, it can take you a decade. It is imperative to act now. Stop spending money and reduce the amount of money you circulate as a government. The government has been totally fine with running a 100% deficit for the last 2 years. The government, the United States federal government, if I remember correctly, I'm pulling a number off the top of my head, in 2020, I want to say it brought in $3.5 trillion in revenue from taxes and spent $6.5 trillion. Where did the other $3 trillion come from? Think about that. $3 trillion in deficit came from where? It came from debt and bond purchases and the inflation of the dollar. You did get taxed $6.5 trillion that year, just not through the levying of taxes through the IRS. You got taxed from inflation because when you inflate the US dollar and I have 100 shares and I say, okay, well, I want more shares than 100 shares, but I don't want to go and steal their shares. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make another 100 shares and then devalue their 100 shares by half because I increased the supply by 2. That's what happened. They did bring in $6.5 trillion. There's not a deficit. It just looks like it because the makeup of the deficit is actually being funded by inflation. It's impossible to run a deficit. They can't make money out of thin air. That's not the way that works. The government never runs a deficit. All it does is that what it looks like a deficit is being funded by inflation. So the inflation of the US dollar is rampant. I don't believe it's going to take 10 years. I don't believe it's ever going to get under control. I think we're going to see major inflation forever, and the US dollar is going to come under stiff competition by Bitcoin and by the Chinese yen as we start to see the tides of geopolitics, especially globalization, which is in threat right now with the conflict in Europe, continue to shift. So Tim, what is your take on this very complicated concept? Is it going to take 10 years to get inflation under control, or are we in a vastly new paradigm where inflation might just be accepted at 15 or 20%?
I liked what you said earlier when you were like, I don't know if they've ever gotten under control. I think we just adjusted to it. That's exactly what I'm thinking. You know, people, the value of the dollar 20 years ago to now is ridiculously messed up. If you go even back 50 years, it's like I remember my dad talking about going to the store when he was a kid and getting a little Coke bottle for 5 cents, and then I think like a piece of candy for like 2 cents. You know, it's just like, wow, that you can't buy a pack of gum for that. You know, you can't even go to a
you can't buy the wrapper of a stick of gum for that.
The public restrooms sometimes cost more than that now. This is the analogy I would kind of say. We were talking about in the planning meeting this morning. When we say control, you know, they haven't controlled it, but what they've done is they've hushed people. They've gotten people to adjust to something to where it's like, all right, yes, the US dollar is not as powerful as it used to be, but I can make a lot more of it. The economy is kind of adjusted to it. and it's still an ugly system, but we've gotten used to it. And I was thinking about it. A good analogy would be when you mess up your spine and you need a chiropractor. If you've never been to a chiropractor, I was telling Smay this.
That's me right now.
I was telling Smay this the other day. There's a bliss to ignorance if you've never been to a chiropractor, because you could be walking around right now with a messed up like spine or messed up, your shoulders, little wompy, you're twisted a little bit, and you're not in pain. You're fine, because what happened is your body got out of alignment and then you adjusted to it and you think you're fine. What happens is the chiropractor adjusts you and fixes you, and you feel amazing, but then the smallest thing will throw you back out of whack, so you got to keep going back. In the same way, I think the US dollar has more gotten so messed up, but then we adjusted to it that people thought they were fine. So now they think we've got the US dollar under control. We have inflation under control. But in all reality, we're just a really kittywampus person who needs a chiropractor bad. And the other thing about the past that we've I talked about this on the show last week, I think, we've always just kind of stuck a pacifier in the baby's mouth and quieted them. But now there's actually a solution to the problem. The dying of the US dollar, the inflation of the US dollar, the power of every single cent that goes into the US dollar is going down, 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 down. Whereas before there was no better solution, now there's a solution, and that name is crypto. That is Bitcoin. That is these other projects in DeFi that are actually going to allow people to stop getting hurt year after year after year as the power of the dollar goes down. So I hope that analogy makes sense, because that's what I think really has happened. I don't know if there's a better way to put it. We've always just adjusted to the messed up situation, and now there's a way better solution that we can actually have good economic and good sound money coming back into our space, so where we have financial sovereignty and financial peace to not worry about it day after day.
And one nation is taking that very seriously, and that nation is El Salvador. President Nayib Bukele, obviously last year, you will remember, set forth a state-level adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies for the exact same reason that many of us are adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. If you leave your value, your dollars, in the US dollar for more than 6 months, you are just burning it. You're setting it on fire. We always talk. Let me shock you with an analogy here. One of the things we always tell you is that before you invest in Bitcoin, think about, can you put that money in a pile in dollar bills in the backyard, set it on fire, and you'll still be able to pay your bills? Because of inflation, the narrative has changed. Before it was, can you afford to put your money in Bitcoin? Now the narrative is, can you afford not to? Because just by holding your money in the US dollars, you don't even get a choice, because the government comes and sets it on fire for you. So the question now is, can you afford not to invest in an inflation-hardened asset? Michael Saylor, who I interviewed, that interview will be going out in 2 days, said no. And he invested $500 million in Bitcoin, because if he didn't, his company he had been building for 33 years was going to go bankrupt. And if he bought back the stock, he would have the stock price drop in half. All of his employees would leave for the FANG companies, because he was losing money because he had a massive amount of cash on hand and the bonds weren't paying anything. We have to ask ourselves the same question. 3 years ago, when the US dollar was inflating at reported 2%, but probably more like 6 or 7%, and Bitcoin was growing, we were asking ourselves as smart money investors, is it a good idea to put money in an unproven speculative asset like Bitcoin? Well, now I'm starting to ask the question, is it a good idea to keep money in the US dollar, which is unproven? Bitcoin's been around for 13 years and has proven that it can hold its value. The US dollar's been around for 250 and has consistently proven that it can. So that's what Nayib Bukele and El Salvador have done. They've realized that. They are leading the charge on a paradigm shift where people start asking, can I afford to keep my money in fiat rather than can I afford to put my money in a speculative asset like Bitcoin? I think Bitcoin is out of the territory of speculative asset. That's why I call it the only proven way to store your value in the long-term distant future. Well, the U.S. Senate just passed the Accountability for Cryptocurrency in El Salvador's Act, which sounds like the U.S. government being a helicopter parent towards Central American nations. But this was very interesting. Nayib Bukele, president of El Salvador, came out and said, the U.S. government does not stand for freedom, and this is a proven fact. As a United States citizen, I want to believe that the United States government does stand for freedom, because that's one of the things this country was founded on. However, that is definitely under attack. I'm not going to say I agree with them, because I do want to stand for my nation. He says they will stand for freedom. I want El Salvador to stand for freedom. I would also love for our nation to as well. But what he said is Bitcoin is FU money. That's pretty funny that the president of a sovereign nation came out and said that. But basically, I will go ahead and pause. Excuse me, I won't pause. I'll go ahead and scroll through this bill. You can pause and read it. But essentially, what's being said here in this bill that just passed the Senate is that the United States government is going to keep tabs on El Salvador and see what El Salvador is doing to make sure that, one, there's no threat to the U.S. government, and two, that Bitcoin being adopted by sovereign nations is not a way to skirt sanctions, because that is very much in the conversation right now as Russia has been shut out of the entire global economy. I'd just like to point out, how funny is it that we have not one but two very, very fiery presidents in the news right now. You got Nayib Bukele and you also got Zelensky, both of them coming out just saying the craziest, most, patriotic things about their nation. That is, respectable, at least I would say. So, Tim, what are they doing here? Why is the U.S. government, why do they care so much what's going on in El Salvador? Is the U.S. government scared?
So, something I would say to people about what we're about to say and what we're talking about is our opinions on what's happening here. And they might be good opinions, but I think a common problem a lot of times when things like this happen is people, they don't read the bill. They don't read what's happening, but they want to yell and scream and because the first reaction to this bill, just so you guys know, and I'm going to tell you guys I don't like it, but the first reaction when you read the headlines, you read everything, you're like, how dare they? How dare those politicians do this? Well, read the bill, and again, my conclusion, my opinion is this is wrong. But I understand. So, go read the bill. Don't just take our word for it. But my take on what's happening here is this is wrong. You should not be looking over that sovereign country's shoulder and trying to plan out how you need to do things. But I can we blame them? Did we think that this should surprise us? It's the government. They are always going to look out for number one, and that's not the people, that is themselves. And their concerns at this point, while we think they're stupid, it makes sense that it's their concerns. One of their concerns is, how will this affect the US dollar? We don't care. We know the future is crypto, but to them, they think of it as their job. That's their thing, to protect the US dollar, and they're concerned. The other thing is, will this be a way to potentially skirt sanctions of not just what we're doing right now with Russia, but any sanctions in the future? So it's like, okay, that's stupid, but again, if they're thinking we need to punish countries and make sure we sanction them correctly, but there's a scapegoat or a loophole, we got to watch that. And then the last one is potentially we see U.S. citizens or maybe other countries using El Salvador to skirt taxes. Again, it's stupid. We could have a whole conversation about what the taxes really should look like. But the point here is, if you just read this and say, this is dumb, this is stupid, you kind of at a certain point got to be like, this makes sense. It is dumb. It is stupid. It shouldn't be happening. But there's a lot of things in politics that shouldn't be happening. And this isn't like a new egregious thing. This is actually a continuation of their thoughts. It makes a lot of sense they would be coming out and doing this. So as much as I disagree with the bill, after reading it, after looking into it, I'm like, I guess I can't be surprised that they're doing this. This isn't as outrageous as we think because they've done things way more outrageous in the past.
And I think it's important for us to realize that there is a big paradigm shift going on right now. The world, just so you know, will never be the same as it was 2 years ago. We've just undergone a pandemic, and we've also just undergone one of the largest conflicts, if not the largest conflicts, on European soil that we've seen in 70 years. That is going to change the geopolitical landscape forever. There are people right now saying that this is the end of globalization. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that, but this most certainly is the end of unfettered world travel right now, because the skies are completely shut down to Russia in most of the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is mostly shut down to Russia. There are a lot of things going on right now that are going to impact currencies, that are going to impact the value of currencies, that are going to impact supply chains, and therefore that are going to impact your ability to store wealth in the dollar, or, by the way, anything built on the dollar. If you're investing in real estate right now, or you're investing in stocks right now, they look like they're beating inflation because the CPI data is skewed. That's why the CPI is such an important metric, because if you pay attention to the CPI and you believe it, and you say, oh, it's 8% inflation over the last 12 months annualized, and then you look at the stock market, you say, oh, well, it's up 25%. Boom, I made a profit. Awesome, I'm good. No, that's not right, because CPI is wrong. You're treading water, if that, in the stock market and in the real estate markets. In real estate, you're losing money every single year. You are burning your money in those assets. The only place, and I really do mean the only place, to store value into the long-term distant future, if that's what you're going for, is Bitcoin. That's why I just said in chat, and I just tweeted out the exact same thing, and I completely agree with this. I used to be worried about how much value I have in crypto. Now I worry about how much value I have in the dollar. Really, I do. You know, I got married, and I thought, you know what? Maybe for once, I'll sell a little bit of crypto and have a little more cash on hand because now I have a wife, you know, and you know that cost of living goes up when there's two people. And I thought about it for a bit, and I said, you know what? No, that's a terrible idea. Why would I want to put value into the US dollar that I don't need right now? Why wouldn't I leave it in Bitcoin and then if I need it, I'll pull it? That's not, that is completely backwards. You're not supposed to say, okay, well, I'll keep my value in an investment, and then if I need it, then I'll put it into cash. You're supposed to be able to rely on the currency to at least be somewhat stable, but that's just not the way it works right now. So, if you want to go down with the ship, keep shuffling deck chairs on the ship. Keep shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic and saying, oh, well, I'll invest in real estate. I'll invest in stocks. I'll invest in art. I'll invest in bonds. I'll invest in anything because they're all on the US dollar ship. That ship is sinking. And so are all the other fiat currencies. Now, the US dollar is sinking the slowest of all of the other fiat currency ships, but what you would rather do is jump ship to a currency called Bitcoin that is the future, and it is how you're going to be able to store your wealth into the future. If you want to know why I am not fazed in the slightest by Bitcoin moving to the downside, it's because with Bitcoin simply trading sideways, it's getting undervalued because the US dollar is inflating. US dollar, we don't have exact metrics on this. It's probably inflated 2 to 3% since the beginning of this year. Yeah. We're seeing more like 1% inflation a month, where 2 years ago it was reported at 1% inflation a year. If you want to know why we are so confident, more confident than ever in Bitcoin, it's because of the devaluation of the dollar. Tim, we got a few minutes here. Do you remember when I was explaining, we were at Muscle Farm. Do you remember when I was explaining to you 2 years ago at the beginning of the flu, why Bitcoin is so valuable? Do you remember that conversation?
Absolutely. That was one of the conversations. That wasn't when I purchased it, but that was probably not far before that conversation that you and I had at my kitchen table where I ended up buying. So, yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, what did I say in that conversation? Do you remember?
I specifically, no, but yeah, go ahead.
In that conversation, I said, because this is 2 years ago, mind you. In that conversation, it would have been in February of 2022, January of 2022, actually. It was at the very beginning when things were only in China and it had just jumped to Taiwan. We were talking about, Tim and I were talking about how because the US dollar rides on nothing and because the governments of the world fund their continual expansion with the inflation of the currency, that at some point a black swan event will come and lead to major inflation. This was right when the thing that I can't say on YouTube that I almost say was starting. That was right at the very beginning of this. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I told Tim, this is going to shake up the world market in a way that we have not seen before in decades, and it's going to lead to a massive amount of printing, and it's going to lead to the inflation of the dollar. And by the way, the only answer is Bitcoin. That's what, if I remember correctly, something along those lines is why I told you 2.5 years ago, and it only gets more and more true by the minute. If you want to store your wealth into the future, which I know all of you do, you got one option. It's called Bitcoin. With that said, let's read some super chats.
We do. We got a good amount of
super
chats.
We have a lot of them. Thank you.
What I do want to point out before we even get there, we got almost 1,800 people watching, but only 700 likes.
No, come on. We can do better
We can do better than that. We definitely can get to 1,000. That would be really easy at 1,000. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was. If I remember, I will say it. A lot of super chats. The first one, though, I'll get this one. We have a new Jebb Youngling.
Woo!
And this name is definitely trying to trip me up. But there's a J in here, snuck in here, but I think it's silent. I think it's just Martin. Although it would be spelled, if I did it phonetically in English, Martijne. But I think it's just Martin Seiwels. Let me know about that, Martin.
Welcome.
Anyway, so I might just call you Jay. He is a new Jebb Youngling, though, so welcome. I've already seen him commenting in, and we welcome to the space. Let's see here. I already read that one, so
Tony
got to
has a super chat.
I'm going to read them here in order. Thomas Valentine said, been watching your channel for a year now. Always great content. Aww. Without digging into the charts, quick 5 to 10 year price predictions for ADA and XRP.
So here's the problem. ADA is going against the trend and building a new system. XRP is helping to prop up the old system. XRP, in my opinion, does not have as bright of a future as ADA. I think that ADA in 2022 dollars will be worth between $20 and $30 in 10 years. XRP, I think, will have grown a lot, but I also think it's a little bit like trying to build your business on the backs of television rather than trying to build your business on the backs of YouTube. Everybody from television is trying to jump to YouTube, so why would you try and build on television? Why wouldn't you just build on YouTube? That's why I see Cardano doing. So I think Cardano is going to outperform XRP.
Do you have any,
XRP price prediction, not really, because I'm not as familiar with XRP, and I want to make sure that I've thought through something like that before I say it. Yeah. So to be honest with you, no, I don't.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something to hold off on. RC Moore. This is a fun one. He said, any new thoughts about ADAX and any price predictions?
ADAX I haven't looked at recently, and the reason I haven't looked at it recently is because it's one of those projects that I kind of just bought. I said, you know what? Fundamentals look great. I'm going to put a little position in it. Just going to let it ride. Just a bag. I haven't looked at it too much. I do believe that it's doing very, very well. Kelly's talked about it quite a bit. If he were on stream, he'd be able to tell you.
Yeah, Kelly remains bullish on it, and
I'm still bullish on it from what I've seen.
And for good reasons.
Holy cow.
We just had a new, Martin said, it sounds fine. The J is real. Tij? Martijn? Martin, that can't be how you say your name. You're pulling my leg. I'll have to work on that later. Chase Christie said, what other projects do you like besides ADA, Bitcoin, and Ethereum? Because those are the big three.
Yeah.
What else do we like? There's a couple of them.
I like Avalanche. I like Polkadot.
Yeah.
I like Luna. I really like Luna. I want to get a bigger bag of Luna.
Yeah.
I like Polygon. Chainlink, great project there. Let's see. I really like Gala. I don't have a bag of Gala, but I really like Gala. I think it's going to do pretty well. Aave is one I haven't invested in, but I've been looking at. I think it's a good project. Those would probably be my biggest ones. Let's see if I got one more here. Yeah, those are the main ones I'd be looking at if I were you.
Okay. I just got a text from Kelly. By the way, Kelly's at my house right now. He said ADAX new exchange listing today on BitTrue.
Oh.
ADAX team said several announcements are coming this week, so let's see. ADAX is up 40% today, and the UI reveal for V2 next week.
Woohoo!
So,
big updates coming to ADAX.
there.
Let's go.
All right, Cryptopher said, any thoughts on Vector Space? That's the VXV. Thanks, guys.
Never heard of it. Sorry, man.
Sorry,
Thank you for that donation.
Tony420 Tokabowl. Haven't seen one from him in a while.
Yeah, what's up, Tony?
I know you guys don't like to get political, but I believe at some point crypto is going to become a political issue.
I think crypto is already a political party.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to see not the Libertarian Party, but a Libertarian Party that is small government, you're looking at the cryptocurrency community. I think the crypto community is going to be big enough in the next 4 years that if it's not exactly called a political party, it'll basically function like one.
I'm getting more updates from, I still think his name is Martin. He's pulling my leg. But he said TIJN sounds like fine. So it's Martfine?
Martfine.
Martfine Sybils?
Ein. IJN is Ein. That's right. I've heard that. Martine.
What
Martine
language
Siebel.
is
Is it Martine? What's that?
Martfine.
I think he's saying it's not F.
Or Marfine?
It's Ein. It's the IJN is Ein. Martine.
Listen, I don't feel like I
Martine.
can be
Martine.
down for this.
I'm not sure.
This
He might
can't
be
be held
trolling
against
us.
me. Rick4962 or Yard Dog said, love you guys and gals. Great videos. Let's go Bitcoin and ADA. Speaking of,
Amen.
Bitcoin is over 43.
It is.
Come on. And ADA is at 117.
Woo, let's go.
So both of those over there rising. Look out for videos not only today, but the rest of this week, which today's Thursday, so Friday and Saturday. We actually have 2 interviews coming out on both Cardano and Bitcoin. So tomorrow, like today, I'm doing an interview with Dan Venture Capital, and that's going to be going out tomorrow. And then we have that Michael Saylor one coming out Saturday. So interviews on both those projects, but both of them right now are on the move, bullish, exciting stuff. Let's see. We got, I think, one more super chat.
We've got a bunch more. Simple Man 699 donated.
Simple Man 699 said, Jebb, I remember.
500 euro. Like, wow. Thank you. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. Jebb, I remember you saying some months ago that if Bitcoin goes up, the altcoins usually follow a month later. Now you said the other day that altcoins go up when Bitcoin goes up. And what's your current view? Any other things? And very important for me is your TA and on ADA. I know you had some shows ago, and so you think profit taking is around the corner?
All right, let me break that down. First of all, thank you so very much for the huge donation. We appreciate that. That really helps out. As far as what I was saying a month ago, I was talking about if Bitcoin goes up with a parabolic rally. Bitcoin has not gone up with a lot of strength, so the altcoins are coming in with the strength, which is interesting. A lot of times that's not how that works. Normally it's Bitcoin that goes on the tear and then the altcoins follow, but right now the altcoins are following, and as I made a video on a couple days ago, that speaks to the growth and the confidence of the altcoin space. So that whole cycle of Bitcoin normally leading the charge might be breaking down because the altcoins are growing so fast. Right now the altcoins are leading, and that's totally fine. That's actually very healthy. In fact, that's actually a sign of maturity in the space. So I want to see that happen. As far as my TA on ADA, I did some earlier. You think profit taking is around the corner? I don't remember saying profit taking is around the corner. I could be misremembering. I think that if I said that, I was probably talking on a very short-term time frame, maybe like 1 to 3 days. It might have been me saying that there's a little bit of opportunity for profit taking below $1 just to lock in some gains. But now that is kind of out of the wind. That's kind of out because Cardano is doing so well. I would, at this point, look at this as a macro movement. This is no longer a small movement on the 4-hourly chart that could just fade away. This is actually potentially the beginning and the genesis of a much larger movement out on the weekly chart. It's showing up clearly there. So I would treat this like a weekly chart movement, not so much a daily chart movement. So that's what I'd say to that. Thank you so very much for that super chat. We got a couple more here. I'll just go.
We do, and we have a continuation of the Martin debate.
Okay.
So now I think this is Taylor typing in here. Says, try this, Tim. Martine. So not, because listen, I'm just reading what gets typed here, and F-I-N-E. What is that pronounced as?
Fine.
Okay, so that's what I was saying. But now
Fiend.
Martin. Is it Martine? And again, I'm sticking with
Did you
Martin.
consider that F might have been a typo?
Well, it was typed in twice, so I don't know. I just read what I'm given.
You know,
I have no
you it's definitely a strange coincidence, but it's possible.
Either way, Silver Prime said ADA is a store of value. Hoskinson versus Saylor debate, question mark?
I think ADA is a fine store of value. When we talked to Charles Hoskinson on our interview a while back, he actually was talking about how they are potentially going to be, I think he was talking about Cody actually, could end up being the store of value side to Cardano's currency side, because there's two different types of things that currencies do. In the modern world, oftentimes they're split into two different things. You have store of value and you have an asset that's a store of value, and you have a currency that is a medium of exchange. He was talking about how Cardano might be that medium of exchange, and then other projects built on Cardano could be the asset that stores value. Although I do believe that Cardano itself is a perfectly fine store of value. That's one of the reasons I'm invested in it. Second part of that question was Hoskinson versus Saylor debate. That would be very interesting because they have almost exact opposite stances on Bitcoin and the other. Saylor would say that ADA is almost certainly a security and therefore will be regulated like a security and will have a very hard time being adopted. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but this is almost verbatim what they've said. And then Hoskinson would probably turn around and say, yeah, well, Bitcoin is a massively inefficient system, massively inefficient network that doesn't need to use that much electricity. We might try to do that. That would be really interesting.
I literally, when you said that, I was like, I wonder if we could arrange that.
If we could arrange that, that would be incredible.
Yeah, we'll bait
We'll
him
look into
it.
that.
We'll do a cold call.
We'll bait him into
Yeah,
it. We'll cold call and say,
we'll
hey, you remember
Put
me?
the phones
No.
next to each other.
Yeah, like a couple telemarketers. Yeah. Just say Bitcoin versus Cardano. They both blow up and start talking. Rick Thompson donated $20, and he said, what are your thoughts on XRP? I think it is a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. That's on a bullet wound. That's what I think it is. I think it is a project that will do very well. It will make a lot of money. But I also think that it is working with not a dying system, which is the banking system. The banking system is not going to die, but it is going to shrink, and it is going to be partially replaced by Bitcoin. So I think XRP will do very well. I do think that there are better investments. That's why I'm not heavily invested in it myself. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to hit that like button. Let's see if we can't get to 1,000 likes here in the next couple of minutes. Thank you so very much for tuning in, and make sure to sign up for Lux Algo. The link is in the description box down below. We showed you earlier how we can use Lux Algo to ascertain what trend Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets are in. Very powerful indicator, and we would love for you to be able to succeed with it the same way that we have. Use coupon code Jebb, J-E-B-B, for 20% off at checkout with the link in the description box down below. Make sure to like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. Make sure to follow us on our social media at CryptoJebb over on Instagram, Twitter, and at CryptoJebbOfficial on TikTok. That's all I got for you today. Before I go, though, guys, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.